It's truly a pleasure and honor for me to be here today among such an august gathering of great achievers from our community, and many of you, my good friends. And I really feel very privileged to belong to a Bund community and be standing before our friends at a time of need. We are truly known for that, as all of us know. I also remember the honor IBCCI has given me just before the pandemic by honoring me for our achievements as a group, and I'm truly indebted for that to Chandranna and all the office bearers for considering me worthy for that honor. Thank you. I hope all of you have recovered from the tremendous onslaught of the pandemic that hit the whole business community deeply, particularly our fellow members of our community who manages hospitality business. And I hope and pray that their troubles are over and we'll all recover from this very soon. I have prepared a presentation and I would like to start with that. And subsequently I can share my story because I was not prepared. I would rather go for the flow, what has been decided earlier. This is a great initiative, the way I see it, as a knowledge summit. Like the earlier speakers have said, knowledge is to be shared. Knowledge has to be transferred to other people. That is why so many books are written around the world. And case studies of many companies are taught in the business schools, so that the knowledge is actually transferred to the people who want to learn. I think for the knowledge to be gained, one of the most important things that we all have to develop is to learn. Ability to learn and wanting to learn and wanting to listen, right? Many of these things, many times, we knowingly or unknowingly don't practice it. Listening is a great quality to develop, and I can tell you my own example. I just did my graduation in a small town called Bantwal. I did my BCom, and I never visited Bombay before till I completed my graduation and came looking for a job. And as you can see, for a small town 40 years ago, what knowledge you could really gain. But after coming here and working and looking at the whole business environment, your mind really opened up. And I felt completely out of the box, that I don't know anything. And I've been fortunate that maybe I'm blessed that I'm a deep learner. I listen to people very carefully. I observe body language. And thankfully, the deep value that my family gave me at the time of my growing up, and I always cherish that. So in the process, I've been able to really do business in the right way. And I always did the right thing. I never did shortcuts. I never wanted to do anything wrong to anyone. And I always believed that other people's money is more important than my own money. So I also cared a lot for customers, because we exist for our customers, proactively spreading across the organization. And when you spread these words out, you have to practice it first, right? Then only people will believe in that. So if you have any questions after my presentation about my other knowledge that I gained over the last 40 years in my business, you can feel free to ask the question. So let's start with the flow. So when the pandemic hit, we all were extremely scared. What would happen, right? I had, like you've seen, I have a company which is in 160 countries. We have an overhead of over $200 million. And if things should go how we all thought in the beginning, now we're all wiser, now we all know what the situation is, but at that time, it was really, really scary what can happen. So what we did is we all got together in a huddle multiple times, not once, and discussed. I'm talking about the senior management team of the company, of the group. And then put in a structure where we could discuss every day what is that we're supposed to do for the first 30 days. And a lot of things came out, a lot of ideas emerged. You know, this is the beauty that when there is a crisis, everybody comes together. Like India plays Pakistan, the whole country gets together. Okay, there may be some exceptions, but by and far, we bury all our differences and we become one team and we talk. Same way, you know, people came together and we discussed and tried to see where we can save money. It's a long story, a long list of agenda that we had to deal with. But just before the pandemic hit, there are also a couple of other very important things happened. Firstly, we acquired a company called Gati Limited. Gati is the second largest domestic express transportation company. It's an asset-light business model where the company can pick up and deliver cargo to any part of the country, 19,000 pin codes. So this company was a pioneer in that business, but the company got into deep difficulties because of multiple reasons. And we got the opportunity to look at that business, and many people looked at it. Our competitors like TVS Logistics and Mahindra Logistics, many of them have looked at it. So they did not have the conviction to turn the company around because there's so much of problems in the organization. So thankfully with some good friends, we've been able to convince the promoter, one on the price which he was asking for, and obviously that we negotiated very hard, brought it down quite substantially. And many other issues we knew, and a lot of things came out during the diligence, and we were convinced that we can tackle one by one. So that was one acquisition just happened the previous December of 2019. The second thing what happened was we were on a transformation journey. We've been discussing about that for over 6 months with one of the leading consultants, McKinsey and Company. And we were also doing a finance transformation project which came later on anyway. So we've been discussing McKinsey and we just got signed up with them, started the whole transformation journey for about 18 months. So these two major decisions were already taken just before the pandemic. So you have no choice. And both these projects were ongoing and kept us really, really busy in the first few months and subsequently throughout the 18 months. We did many other initiatives. Through the whole transformation and the Gati acquisition and the transformation Gati, we used a company called A&M. And we've been able to identify there are many critical positions where we could strengthen our organization everywhere. So one, in Gati, very sad to say that we had to downsize the company by almost 33% of the employees because that was completely filled with the number of people required. So on one hand, we are scaling the company down, and also tightening the processes everywhere, wherever we could. And then all these critical positions we have identified have been hired. As you can see, almost 20 CXO positions in business development, in general management, in HR, and in IT, in the digital, everywhere. So wherever we identified the requirements, we hired the people. All happened online through video. And then other 100-odd critical positions. As we speak, we changed the entire management of Gati in the last 18 months. And and the organization has now really become far more agile. So, continuing with that, we also had, unfortunately, in the middle of all this, there are two other very important events happened. That is, we got a cyber attack globally. Our entire global business came to a standstill. And there are too many things that were unfortunately not in our favor. And this was a ransom attack. So we've been asked over $10 million to be paid as a ransom. And then we again got into very, very serious discussions and brought in a new set of consultants and worked with them. And I'm very proud to say that we didn't pay a penny. And in 15 days, we've been able to in the process, we are also been able to fix our entire IT organization, and that process is even continuing today after 8 months of the attack. Now, talking about the other thing, what we also did is about, we wanted to, when the pandemic hit, the share prices collapsed. So the price came down to about 60 rupees. And unfortunately for All Cargo, because the diversified businesses what we have within the logistics and a global presence, our company was not rightly valued. So we thought, why not? It's a great opportunity for us to delist the company. So we decided to announce a delisting, and as the delisting process was ongoing, market started recovering. So then obviously, we wanted to pay X amount of price for the shares, but the investors were not willing. And then anyway, then we abandoned the entire delisting process, but that also taking a lot of time to go through all that. And after a year later, we closed the delisting, and then the price is now already hit 280 rupees, and we are willing to pay up to 150 rupees. So the job is done to some extent in that sense. So now that's about the group. Why I'm telling you all this is just to make sure that I communicate about what we did in these 2 years. In spite of the pandemic, in spite of all the trouble, company became even more stronger. So now talking about what lies ahead post-COVID, right? And these are things most of you already know. I think India, the whole geopolitical situation is changing. The Quad getting formed, India, US, India's presence in the global scenario is emerging even stronger and stronger. And I think thankfully for the current government, I think there are a lot of reforms are getting fast-tracked, and many things are going on, as you can read in the presentation. Like, to add further, as you know, the foreign direct investment is the peak, is at $81 billion. The stock markets are at record levels, a lot of money coming from international investors, keeping a great amount of trust and faith in the Indian growth story. The other most important emerging situation is on the e-commerce, right? The e-commerce is now becoming very, very inevitable in every business. And I think that's one area where all of us need to put great effort to find the right kind of a strategy, right kind of a, ideas about your own businesses. That is, I think, something that we need to think about. And also India, as all of us know, that is a very young population. Your business need to be focused on where the younger population's requirements are served in a large extent, where the consumption of the younger people are. So that is something I think we need to keep in mind. Also, like I said, the policy reforms are happening in a great speed. Situation of China is, India is looking at, the world is looking at another important manufacturing hub for the world, services for the world. India is already the leading player in the services business, as you know, the IT and other digital areas. So India has a great opportunity in manufacturing. And on the back of the entire infrastructure story that India is emerging, 172 projects are already completed, 235 projects of about 2,16,000 crore under implementation, 8,981 projects worth 111 lakh crore is being considered or being implemented or planned out. Gati Shakti, which is 100 lakh crore initiative by the Government of India. And as we discussed, it's very, very relevant for manufacturing companies. 13 sectors are already covered in the PLI, Production Linked Incentive Program by the Government of India. Huge support for the MSME industry. There's a lot of things happening, and India is a great place to be in as entrepreneurs today. All that is required is way to find your future, the vision and the strategy and the financing of that strategy is what is need to be really thought through. On top of that, the whole digitalization program, the world is, like Google, for example, has set up a $10 billion fund for digitalization in India. Like I said earlier, the entire IT and knowledge business is just booming. So many unicorns are getting created. There's lots happening. So this is an opportunity, and this also can be a huge challenge. The ones who don't adopt digitalization in your respective businesses. So this is something which is very, very close to my heart, is the people. I earlier said about shareholders, I earlier said about the customers, and the other important area is people. You know, if we have to build a sustainable business, we all know that we need to have a great team of people, right kind of a skills, right kind of a culture in the organization, and right kind of a structure to support that. They say a culture is such an important element to bring the best practices in the company, create that motivation in the organization, and have a very good reward system for the people to excel. These are very, very important matters that, you know, as a people management, we need to keep in mind. And many organizations, as all of us know, that have ESOP schemes and performance-linked bonuses to the people. And retention of people is becoming a massive challenge, as demand for good quality people is always on the rise. I think this is one of the biggest challenges for all entrepreneurs, to attract the right talent, retain the right talent, develop the right talent, and make sure that there is enough for them to do, so that they have a roadmap for their own career. So this is something we have to figure a way out if we have to build the scale and have a sustainable business going forward. Obviously, we all know there is always risk in business, and how do you mitigate the risk is something that we always have to keep in mind in terms of analyzing the risk. We have a chief risk officer in the company. His job is not only to do internal audit, his job is to talk to various managers and communicate the challenges and communicate the ideas and scale it to the board, right? And create a strategy around that and create a structure around that to make sure that, yeah, in a way, you're keeping your ears close to the ground, because you can't reach everywhere. Your managers can't reach everywhere. You need to have independent people to give you that idea of what's going on in your organization. You know, the other major risk many of the businesses have encountered, as all of us know, you read in the newspapers about companies going overboard in financing their businesses by taking loans or by issuing instruments which can come into biting, right? So financial planning is something extremely important, and today every stock market, every company are looked at the scanner before the valuation is done. What is your debt in the company, right? How you are able to service the debt. And our friend Raj Kiran is here, so I'm sure he's going to speak about that. I think debt has taken down many, many big groups, you know, where they were and where they are today. So many of them are in NCLT, so many have gone bankrupt, have lost their name, they had to leave the country. All sorts of things have happened, right? So managing the finances and the risk, and talking to your customers and talking to your, I'm a big believer also to talk to the competitors, right? So understand what's going on, what is their context, what are their challenges. So, you know, you should be able to gather those information and use that information for the benefit of your organization.
That situation, even you said delisting of the, you have decided of delisting, and then again coming back to this thing. These are the decisions to be taken in kind of a panic situation.
Yeah.
So what kind of mindset kept you, you know, in that flow to take those decisions? Because it is I'm asking an insight of an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
We just wanted to know that what kind of a mindset make you to take kind of a decision to float through this.
Yeah. You know, I'll tell you, 2 years has been one of the most difficult to, or we could absorb, because we have very, very strong financial discipline in the company. Okay, to just give you an example, there is something called audit committee, which everybody knows in the board level, right? So in addition to the audit committee, we also have what we call as a finance committee, which is over and above the audit committee, which is not mandatory. So I'm always paranoid about finances, okay? Recoveries, paying people in time, servicing your debt, and also I'm very, very sensitive about equity, because equity is a very expensive asset, right? And equity is something that you should not give away easily. These are the things that I learned very quickly in life. So that's the reason we still own 70% of the company. So, in spite of raising so much money multiple times. So, one, I have a financial discipline and enough reserve to do the delisting, and also personally over the last 20 years, having running the business, we got a lot of dividend. Personally also, to a large extent, I know debt, zero debt in the personal capacity. And obviously I have some money so I could use that to do the delisting. So financially I was secure to do these kind of bold decisions. Gati, when we acquired, we didn't borrow any money also to acquire Gati. We used our own money, internal resources of the company to buy Gati, right? And we faced tremendous amount of challenges. There's no enough time because we had a battle in the board. We had a battle with the promoter after acquisition. The business in the pandemic collapsed by 95% for 3 months because the whole nation was locked down. So the company lost money, over 50 crores it lost in 1 quarter. There's a lot of things that were going on. 2020 was an extremely difficult year. And we had committed for a lot of actions and initiatives already in the previous year, like I said earlier. So I think what it goes to show, one is you should have a very strong management, strong financials, right? And you should not be someone who gets distracted into non-core businesses, right? And when you build a reputation and when you build an ecosystem where you have an employee brand, or you have a financial brand, the banks are, we are always top rated. If you need money, we are under leveraged, so we can always raise money. We hold significant shares. We could always sell equity and buy. So those two things really gave us that confidence. So if I answered your question, a very sustainable business model, right? The sustainability, first of all, comes from having a very structured environment, and there is a succession planning that is being done right from multiple levels, right? So we have a program in the company where we identify high potential people, and we discuss their career with them. We discuss their career for the next 5 years. Where would he reach or she will reach? We identify also the critical resources. We call them as specialists. They may not be able to grow to CXO level, but they are important for the company. So you identify even such critical positions. And always plan about, kind of ring fence them to begin with, that they don't leave. Or if they leave, there is always a second tier who is able to take up at least temporarily. And we have two structures also in the managing people. One is your CHRO, the regular CHRO, Chief HR Officer, and we also created what we call as Chief People Officer. So they work as a team, but Chief People Officer's job is to hire the best talent in the market, proactively engage talent and leaders across the competition, and go into the universities and hire young people. Doesn't have to be IIM or XLRIs. It could be tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 schools, and make this compulsory as a mandate, as a goal for a senior leadership to make sure that those people are successful. They don't come and join and then leave after 1 year or 2 years. So that means they have that goal, they have that KPI to make sure that they retain the talent, which is not very successful. I can assure you that will lead to a lot of frustration. A lot of people leave. 50-60% of people can leave. But that is the investment you have no choice but to make. Right from my office, and my brother-in-law Adarsh, who is one of a very senior person in the organization, we have created at least 5 of them. And now they are country managers. One of them has become a CFO. So people have risen to that level over the years. So succession planning is a very important area. Not only family succession, which Ajitan is going to talk about later, even the internal succession, so that your key talent or key leadership is always there. And obviously the lateral hiring. That's something that that's why the Chief People Officer's role is to hire. That's how in the pandemic we could hire 20 CXOs and 100 critical resources across the world. all on video calls, because nobody can travel, nobody can meet, and very successfully done. Strategy, digital program, all that got started, and he's now fully dedicated into that. That's almost like a new organization. So he is in a way leading it, and people are very happy. And when he joined, this entire transformation work is also going on. So that was a great opportunity for him to work with the companies like McKinsey and many of the other things are what we are doing. He was involved, so he learned a lot. And but he still want to go and do his MBA next 1 or 2 years. So so that's how it is. But I am more training him to be the. Of course, he has to work. We have a plan for him for the next 10 years, how he should be transitioned into a functional role, a leadership role. But I think more about he should manage the company like how I am managing the company now, using the people and using the professionals and right kind of advisors. So not necessarily 10 years he has to slog, obviously, and after that, that's how he should be running the company. There are many reasons. I'll name a few of them. Number one is COVID, of course, right? What happened is, if you look at the liner shipping business in the last 10 to 12 years, consistently, the shipping companies have under-delivered to the shareholders. Okay? The return on equity is probably less than 5%. Because what happened was everybody were building ships, buying containers, and there was overcapacity. Then the global financial crisis happened, right? The volumes fell 40%. And the shipping industry never recovered from that in a right way. So in the process, many companies went bankrupt, and some other companies got acquired. Now we have about 6 or 7 top companies have about 80% of the global market share, right? So they got the power on demanding rates. So that is one. The second, in the pandemic, 2-3 things happened. One, the ports started closing down, so which means there is no loading and unloading, and that has affected the containers sitting on the ships instead of containers in circulation. So then the port closure also led to delay for the ships for getting the berth. And then the labor shortage happened because all the labor started going into the villages, and the government started giving them money, and many of them didn't return only to work. So there is a shortage of labor, there is a shortage of driver. Then the global economy went up, the demand's gone up because people are sitting at home and ordering. A lot of demand started happening. So there are these kind of reasons all added up together, and then the Suez Canal happened, so that created the blockage. So all the Western world, the warehouses are full, the ports are dysfunctional, there are no trucks, there are no labor. No labor means substantially less trucks, substantially less, So all this has contributed to the shortage of containers and the ships. And the shipping lines decided to hold on the rates. They started increasing the rate. And when they increase the rate, then everybody increase the rate, right? So its benefit also comes like us.
Increasing the rate to 6 times, 7 times, 8 times,
Yes.
10 times of the normal freight.
Yes.
So this is a very good catch for you if you think of acquiring Shipping Corporation of India, because all the shipping companies are owned by Europeans. In India, I think Shipping Corporation of India has hardly 27 ships. I think 27 vessels.
No, Shipping Corporation of India doesn't have significant presence in container shipping. They have probably not even 1% of the global shipping capacity, not even 1%. Yeah. To build a shipping line of the scale what is required, you need at least $100 billion today. $100 billion to create one shipping line. So Shipping Corporation has no chance. And so I was talking to the Minister of Commerce the other day. So he was talking to me about what is the way out. So I was telling him the same thing. So he said, no, this is not going to work.
Thank you.